The guys were in a great mood last night. Obviously, we had a light practice and then day off today, and so we're heavy into Iowa State. This will be another big challenge for us. Statistically, arguably, whatever comment you want to make, the best defense that we have played or could potentially play based on what people say. They've been good for a number of years, and starting to come around, in my opinion. Just an outsider. Obviously, I don't have information on what goes on in their camp, but playing considerably better over the last 3 or 4 weeks, just from me, an outsider looking in. Purdy's playing good, played good again Saturday. Tight ends obviously are playing good. The running backs, what we thought he was. We'll need a great week of practice. We need to be able to stay focused, and we're expecting a fourth quarter game. This is a good football team, and so we'll have to do a great job of coaches and getting all that information to the guys and get some quality work and head north and play a ball game.
Mike, you won another close game Saturday. They're all close. What characteristics of a team help you win close games week after week?
There's a lot of talk about it's good to win games. Win close games helps you later in the year. I don't know if anybody's ever been able to scientifically prove if that's right or wrong, but I would say that being in a number of close games and understanding that you can find a way to win if somebody will make a play, and the term that gets used a lot is find a way to finish a game. From that standpoint, I think it helps our team because we've done it, unfortunately, pretty much every game. We've been in this situation, and so if we get in that situation, you would like to think that we wouldn't panic and we could make plays down the stretch.
Did you back in 11, could that have hurt you? Because you dominated most teams in 11, had a couple of close games. Mm-hmm. And then you get up to Ames and it's tight and then come out your way.
It could. Hard to say. We were able to save a lot of legs in 11. Very few of our starters were playing halfway through the third quarter that year. We were able to get later into the season and we were fresh. We don't have that luxury this year. But I would say that we have been in enough close games that the maturity that we have, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, is helping us there. There's a lot of experience with those guys that are on the field in that situation.
You haven't had to play guys as much, but compared to the 11 team, especially on the defensive side, don't you think you're a lot deeper than you were that year? Oh, yeah.
We're playing more guys now than we have in a number of years. And that team, it was interesting. They were on the field a lot because the offense wasn't on the field very much because they scored in, 4 or 5 plays and they scored. They were back on the field, and then they got themselves off the field through turnovers. These guys, this group is a little different because we have more depth. We're able to rotate some guys in, and the game's not we're not getting as many plays. Now, we had 82 plays down here offensively, but that hadn't been where we were at this year. So the number of plays has been reduced this year compared to that season.
Mike, I remember your first meeting with Matt Campbell here. He, before the game, he was just talking your head off, asking you, what'd you do to get this thing going here? And finally I remember you saying, hey, Matt, I need to get back over to my team. We need to play the game here. Call me sometime. Was that ever followed up on, and how much contact have you had with Matt Campbell over the years?
He's been very complimentary of me and our program when I visit with him. I saw him, I see him at Big 12 meetings and such, and we haven't had those in a couple years. So I don't run into him on the recruiting trail much. We don't cross paths recruiting-wise much, so I don't see him a lot. You'd have to ask Matt. I think his first year or two, he's trying to gather as much information as he could. He seems to be a very smart coach. I know that he was doing the same thing with Coach Snyder. he probably sees similarities in the programs and how to build things and such. But I mean, he and I have always gotten along good when we just don't see each other much. And of course, I don't talk to anybody, so I don't really keep communication with people through the phone or texting or such. So
I know it's a different team, but is it at all theory that you're going to 2 games undefeated? Do you use that at all to kind of motivate this team to kind of stay the course?
Not really. I just don't know if that has an impact. I will go back to what I've always believed in, and I shared it with the team and the coaches both last night separately and then together, that really the only thing we can hang our hat on is our preparation from last night until our last walkthrough Saturday morning. There's so many moving parts and so many different areas that you can't really pin anything down other than, guys, look, we have to prepare. And the truth of the matter is this, that we, if as long as we focus and practice well and we're disciplined and we're a tough football team, we have a chance to win fourth quarter games. We're not physically and skilled wise overwhelming like we were and have been in years past on really good teams, to where we know that we're going to come out of this game and we're going to win by 20 points. That's not the type of football team we have right now. So our players have to understand that. And my job is to be upfront and honest with them and tell them the truth, coaches and players. So coaches are responsible for not putting their feet up on the handlebars and riding downhill. We have to continue to work hard during the week, and then the players have to focus and practice well to give themselves the best chance, because, you just look at in our league right now, it looks like with the quarterback change, Oklahoma's playing really well right now, and I'm sure they're ranked really high. And then the other teams, everybody's just kind of playing like each other. There's not a lot of difference for the most part, for the majority of the conference. So what's the difference? Well, it's going to be the team that practices well and focuses on their opponent, in my opinion. Turnovers, big plays, and tackling. And that's really what it comes down to if you just watch the games, where most of the teams in our league are very equal. And I'm going to say that this might be an unusual year. Most of the teams across the country, with the exception of 3 or 4 teams maybe, I'm not sure, everybody's kind of in the same boat.
You look at on mentality.
On what?
On mentality of the players. If you had teams that handled their success better than others,
Mm-hmm.
I look at this one. You're not under the radar anymore. You're 8th ranked now. You're getting some top 5 votes even. When you're still undefeated midway through the season, you're going to be on the radar.
Right.
What's the secret sauce to keeping your guys playing like they got something to prove when they prove themselves?
I think you have to tell them the truth, and what I just mentioned was that for us to think, or me or our staff to think, that we're just a dominant, what is a traditional top 10 team when they play games that they don't have their starters in the fourth quarter. But there's not a lot of teams this year that are like that, including us. We're not in that position. We've won games different ways this year. As I mentioned, our maturity and our experience has helped us in a big way, particularly on defense. We've worked well together as a coaching staff, and some of the decisions we've made of how to play the game and approach the game have helped us. So the only thing that I would lean on to answer your question is we have to tell them the truth so they understand that when we're at the point in the season we are, there's fatigue that sets in across the country, physically and mentally, for coaches and players. And if we back off any at all, then we make ourselves susceptible to not playing as well on Saturday versus teams that are capable of beating us if they play better than we do. And I tell the players that because I believe that's the truth.
In your experience, that you have had teams that have been a little different in terms of how they handle their success?
Always, yeah. You have different personalities based on who your marquee players are. Like when we started the season, I don't think that any of us would have predicted at this point that Jaylen Warren would have been the marquee player. Well, we're fortunate. Jaylen Warren, as I said, is humble. He's unselfish. He's tough. And so that's kind of the mold that we've directed ourselves to offensively with his leadership. And you get the same thing on defense. So you have Brock Martin, who plays in games and shouldn't be playing in games because of his health. You have Rodriguez that brings that tough, natural wrestling mentality. And then you have all the maturity with Harper and Peel and McAllister and Bernard and Christian this year and other guys, I'll miss, Evers, that give them a little lift because they're pretty humble guys and they just like being a part of the team. So we don't really have any issues that we have to battle to get ahead of ourselves handling success.
Like when you look back at the last 6 drives of the game, what your defense did against Texas, what stood out? I mean, you gave up 12 yards, no first downs. What did you guys do well over that span?
I think our ability to roll more players in is helping us, particularly up front. The game, college game, has changed again, in my opinion. You know, we went to fast-paced no huddles. Then we started running RPOs here. RPOs went all over the country. Then RPOs kind of weeded themselves out a little bit with more heavy set formations over the last 2 or 3 years that we're seeing that you haven't seen. Now, the adjustment, the biggest adjustment in college football is the pass rushers have gotten better than they ever have been, like in the NFL. For years, the NFL was controlled by the 2 guys rushing the quarterback on the edge. College football hadn't made that transition yet from an athleticism standpoint. Now it has. Guys can control a game, like number 9 for Iowa State can control a game rushing the quarterback. So that would be where the game has changed. And our defensive front, we can keep people fresh because we have a number of guys healthy. And they're playing well enough at our level that when they're fresh, they can affect the offense. And I think that's what you're seeing, and that's what happened in the latter part of this game, the last game.
Mike, do you see similarities between Brees Hall and Bijan Robinson? Are there things to carry over week to week there?
Similarities between
Brees Hall and
that one and this one we're playing against?
Yeah.
2 different backs. I mean, both of them very good. Both of them going to play in the NFL, very successful. This one is electric and flash and cut and make people miss, break tackles, and run away from you. 28 is very patient, runs a lot like Thurman Thomas used to run. He'll sit around and wait and then hit a seam. Very patient runner and very productive at what he tries to get accomplished.
You feel like you've gone back in time a little bit? It used to be a quarterback league. It feels like it's a running back league right now.
It is a running back league. You know, we're going into week 4 now, where if you're not focused on wrapping this guy up and getting him down, Kansas State's guy was that way, right? Baylor's guy was that way. That guy down there last Saturday was that way, and this guy's that way. So there's really, really good running backs. Our running back's a good player. There's good ones in this league.
Hey, Mike, once upon a time, you advocated getting a defensive coordinator that hair on fire, foaming at the mouth, really that type of guy. Jim Knowles is not that way. I've noticed. He seems very calm and, just very, very even keel. Why did his personality connect with you? Why did you think it would work? And has that played into what we're seeing right now with the defense?
So a number of years ago, and I don't remember when, because it's been so long now, that somebody going through a hiring process. My guess it probably would have been when we were looking for an offensive coordinator, because we had to look for so many of them. What is it that you're looking for? And you might remember that I said that after doing this about 6 to 8 years as a head coach, I realized that if I hire somebody that's smart and they'll be loyal to the program, they'll figure out what to do and how to be successful. So when I came across Coach Knowles during the interview process, I didn't know that he was an Ivy League grad until he got here. I just knew his history and what he had done, and then I realized he was an Ivy League grad. And then when he came in and interviewed, there was a little bit of mad scientist side to him, like Dexter the Laboratory. You ever see that? Your kids watch that? Y'all ever watch that? That kind of that side to the of him. And then when he got here, you would have to ask him, but in my perception was that he thought that his concepts and scheme, based on what he's done for 30 years of coaching, would work anywhere he went, and it didn't matter. And I think he realized in the first year and a half or 2 years that wasn't going to work in this league when we had all these NFL quarterbacks. So he's transitioned into a different concept of what he feels like gives us the best chance to have success. But where he's made the most strides is he's a veteran coach that's still willing to change. And you don't see that a lot in our profession. Guys that have been doing this at our level for a long time, most of them don't want to change who they are. They want to try to change the people they're playing, which is not going to happen anymore. Coaches are too smart for that. So he's highly intelligent and pretty low-key to himself, goes in his office, closes his door, keys are hanging in the keyhole, and then he'll come out 4 or 5 hours later with a plan that he thinks is good, gets with the guys, and they mix and match and get together, and then he calls his plays. Where he is a leg ahead or above other people is on game day as a play caller. He's fantastic. It's just a fact.
And I assume that you could probably ask other people how he was on game days, but was that one of those things you had to learn as he was here over time, just how good he was on game days? Well,
I wish I could say yes to that and make me look smarter, but I never did ask that question. But he's very calm, and he's a fast thinker. He thinks really fast, and he reacts to things. And so, and I say this every week. I mean, I don't know how much longer that our guys can keep playing like they are and not having a letdown and whatever, but we can state the facts. It is what it is. The guy's highly intelligent. He has a demeanor in practice that's a little bit old school, and the players like it. They don't look against it. They buy into it. On game day, he's very, very calm, and he's a fantastic play caller.
How rare is it?
He on 4th and 3, it does Saturday, we dropped 8. I mean, you guys probably saw it. I mean, from up there, who drops 8 on 4th and 3? And he dropped 8 and confused the quarterback. Quarterback trampled, and he tackled him. I mean, I wouldn't have. I'd have blitzed. But I'm just saying, that's why he's smarter than me.
I was just wondering, how rare is it to find a coach like Coach Knowles who's smart but also willing to change?
Well, that's what I was saying. It's difficult when you find guys my age have been doing something for 30-something years. They're not real. They're set in their ways, let's put it that way. So his willingness to look in the mirror and what philosophies are and then say, it's probably not going to work. That's where he's made his biggest stride. And then he's good at what he does. He's good at finding ways to do things. He gets caught. I mean, they all get caught at times, but overall, he's usually in the right spot.
Speaking of Knowles and defense, I just saw where Jason Taylor II was named by the Big 12 the Defensive Player of the Week. Going back to that play, which was so critical last Saturday, it looked like his disguise was a cover 4 look, and instead Taylor became kind of a robber. Talk about Jason on that play. I mean, he executed it not just physically but mentally. He knew he needed to make sure Thompson didn't see him jump it until it was time to jump it.
So, again, it started with the play call where Jim had a feel for what he thought was going to happen. So he called the coverage where he drops down. And Jason did a good job of disguising it. So, it's the disadvantage of college football being in the shotgun all the time compared to a lot of the NFL teams are under the center where the quarterback's eyes are always on the defense. Well, in college, we're in the shotgun, so I can see what's going on. But then when I ask for the ball, I'm looking at the ball because I have to catch the ball. I don't know what's going on now. And then I have to relocate coverage. That's the difficult part about playing quarterback at this level because of all the shotgun play. So sometimes what happens is, depending on the pass rush and the set of an offensive lineman, visibility can be disturbed from a quarterback. And then, you would have to ask him. Obviously, he didn't see him. And he dropped down and didn't see him, and then after that it was too late. It's one of the ones you throw and you wish you had a string on it because you can see it happen, and about halfway there you know it's not good. I've done it, and I know that's a bad feeling. So it's a very well executed scheme, and it was a good play call at the right time, and it was the biggest play in the game, without question.
What was your evaluation of Spencer, talking about quarterbacks, when you mentioned Saturday? You did, like, protection was great, but what was your evaluation looking back now at Spencer?
We didn't protect him well enough, and we put him on the run. And I'll go back to when you put a quarterback on the run, you put him in a situation they don't function. Now, are there a couple throws that he could have hit? Sure, but that's consistent across the country. We have to protect him better early in the game where he can get comfortable and set his feet.
There was a play, I think on fourth down, he almost went for it. He lined up real quick and you called timeout. Was he going to go for it? Was you guys going to go for it then? What was the...
Well, that was your offensive coordinator not understanding what down it was. You understand? I said your offensive coordinator, not mine. And I had to go running down and call timeout. And that can happen too. I have called plays a number of years and get into the game and realized I started to call a play and somebody said, "Coach, do you know it's fourth down?" And I said, "Yes, punt." So we were going fast before halftime and this and that. He called a play and didn't realize it was fourth down. So that's what happened.
I know Spencer's hard on himself, but one thing I've noticed being down on the sidelines is I've never seen him do anything but be positive with another teammate. And early on, that was a heck of an effort by Tay on the first play where he dove out, had it in his hands, but it would have been a tough catch. But the one in the end zone where, that was perfectly thrown, the fade. Mm-hmm. But I never see Spencer go to a receiver in anything other than kind of blaming himself or calling on his own sword. He's pretty good about not...
No, he's been great. He's been great in that area. He's matured. He's gotten over that, taken things personal, and he handled himself really well in the game. He had a lot of friends that were in the stands there talking to him throughout the game that were beating up on him pretty good. He stayed focused, didn't pay attention to trash behind him and all that, and that's not always the easiest thing to do, particularly if you're not playing as well as you think you should or statistically based on what was going on. And I'll say it again, we didn't protect him well, so it made it difficult on him. But he takes a lot of that, and he stayed focused and blocked everything out and continued on. And as the game went on, he played better.
I thought one of his biggest moments too, and it looked like he slapped his thigh trying to get somebody to move. And Danny thought that was a clap, and that was what happened on the snap. Spencer went back, got it, saved as much as he could, but I think that was when he had the scramble that he got within 2 yards of the stick on the next play, which was pretty big play.
Yeah, so our guys handled the sound well. We had a procedure, and then we had the issue right there on the one snap. That's a good example of why when you're playing shotgun offense like we do, that quarterbacks, unless you have to, you can never take your eye off that ball. Because he might snap it early, which he did, and it was, obviously not intended. But unless there's a reason for you looking somewhere else, you got to kind of make sure that out of your peripheral vision, you at least have an idea what's going on. But it is hard.
I know Rob was talking about Jason Taylor's pick. His second quarter, was that the biggest play of the game, you think?
With JT's catch?
Yeah,
Well, no doubt. Interception? Oh, no question. No question.
Going back to the kind of atmosphere and crowd noise of it, what made Rashad and Brennan, two younger guys who made some pretty big plays in this one, what impressed you about their poise and ability to handle that?
So they're both young, still gaining valuable experience being in those type of situations. 80 played a little bit last year, and so he's a little further ahead. 10 is just getting into it, but he would get a good grade from me on how he's expedited his maturity and experience because he seems like the environment is not affecting him. And so it's difficult for a coach to instill that in them, they have to do that on their own. It's called experience, and we all know that until you do it and have been through it, it's really hard to say what it's going to be like. And both of them have shown that they're a little further ahead from a maturity, experience standpoint than what they are game-wise, which has been positive for us because we don't have any other guys left. I mean, we're down to just a few wideouts, and so we don't have a choice. Those guys got to play a lot of snaps.
And talking about Brennan specifically, do you think growing up playing football in Oklahoma's biggest stage, Bixby like he did, how do you think that maybe helped him prepare him for some of these crazy environments? So, or does high school football help you with that at all?
Oh, I don't think there's any question it helps, but with him, he has a different personality. I mean, you could take him out of here and go put him on the down here for Dallas Cowboys, and he wouldn't care. He'd just go play. That's just the type of personality he has. So did it help with the success he had in the games he played in? Sure it did. But I don't think a lot of things bother him. I think he just goes with the flow. He's very happy-go-lucky. We had a good play with a throwback to the quarterback when he threw a poor pass, and he came over and we might have scored on that play. And so it's kind of a big deal. And he was over there and on the bench, and Rattay walked by, and, he was kind of in a somewhat comical frame of mind for a second. It's like, hey, I need you to work with me. I'm going to throw in next week, man. Just like he's already over it. I wasn't over it. He was over it. So, but he just has that personality about him.
Any reason Brennan was the guy to throw the pass on that double pass?
Well, he's thrown that ball in practice and in scrimmages and spring scrimmages probably 50 times, and he's hit all 50 of them. That's why. Now, one thing he did say to Rattay and them is it's a whole lot different throwing it in a live game than it was in all those scrimmages, which is true.
Hey, Mike, when you think about your offensive personnel, from my mind, Rashad and Jalen are probably the two guys I'm most surprised by how much they've been an important part of your offense. Are those two guys, are you surprised by how much they have played into the offense? Or maybe you saw something out of both of them that led you to believe they might have this kind of role?
Well, Rashad got in by default, injury-wise, but since then, as I was saying, he's done really well. He's grown up, he's matured, he's made most of his catches, he's blocked. The game hadn't gotten bigger than him, he's hung in there. And then with Jalen, it's a little different because he's already played 3 years of college football. And when he came in here and went through our strength and conditioning development and changed his body, he's been obviously the biggest impact. I mean, he's been huge for not only for the attitude that he brings our offense, but just his productivity. I mean, the guy's productive is crazy how productive he is.
You get his hydration figured out, you think? After that one game he had the cramps, you were a little worried about.
We haven't had any, and I mentioned it the next week that I think he got a little excited. We thought it was hydration. Obviously, we treated it that way, but I think he had like almost a little bit of positive anxiety, like he was so amped up that he kind of locked himself up. I don't know that either way. I just know that since then, we haven't had any hydration problems.
Mike, you played and coached some really good running backs.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what he looks like on Sunday when he comes out to your Sunday practices, but I don't know that I've ever seen a guy look as good leaving the locker room with a bounce in his step when he gets on the bus and goes home after carrying the ball 33 times. This was the first time he went and met with the media afterwards. I mean, he looks as fresh after the game as he does before. Is that your observation?
Yeah, well, he takes care of his body. He's mature. He's not entitled. He's thankful for everything that he gets. He didn't tell me this directly, but I was told from somebody that heard him say that when we got down to Austin and we bussed over to the stadium and back to the hotel Friday, the police, we had an escort, and he asked, he's like, well, these people they're escorting us around. It's pretty nice of them. I mean, he was shocked that they were going to give us a police escort, but that's just his personality. He takes care of his body. Football is important to him. Sunday's lifts are optional. He has not missed a lift yet, And I mean, if anybody needs Sunday off, it's him. He lifts every Sunday. When we run Sunday nights, he's out front running. So you have a somewhat rare occurrence of a young man that's this age living in this world who's just thankful for everything they have and unselfish and just glad to be doing what they're doing.
Who feeds off? Who, the fourth quarter he's doing, the defense is doing what they're doing. Who's feeding off each other? Is it the defense feeding off of him, or he's feeding off of the defense?
Well, earlier I said he's brought a mental toughness to our offense, and so defense loves that. And our offense is getting a little better every week. We're not to where we want to be, as we all know that, but we have a few restrictions that we're still working through. But they're starting to play a little bit to the defense, but the defense has carried us. You know, it's been all of us looking up to them for the most part, and the offense is feeding off their success.
Jason Taylor, does it help? He's a playmaker. Does his running back stuff he did at Colorado come into play in this? Because he seems when he gets his hands on the ball, he seems.
And he's, you know, it's interesting with him. We've had a number of players here over the years that were defensive players, and for some reason it seemed like they get to touch the ball a lot and have success with it, and he's one of them. Sean Lewis was a guy that was always around and, you know, got the ball, and Gilbert, yeah. But with him, his athleticism, you know, like he got that one kick out here that year. I mean, he just naturally can make some plays, and which is, you know, benefited us in a big way.
Mike, you've danced before, but how do you decide to dance these days? What goes
Well, the
into
team
that?
does it. I don't do it. They start their cheer and their chant for me, and then I do it. And, you know, I'm trying to cut back on it. At some point I won't be able to do it anymore, I guess. But they start that, and then I do it.
You did the limbo almost. How'd you get up then if you're worried about not being able to do this very much longer?
I got 12 years of wrestling, and and I say at some point that'll come to an end, maybe with the surgery. So.
Who starts it? Is there a certain guy who usually kind of leads that?
I don't know. They're all in there having a good time. I don't know who does it. That was a great article you wrote on Jacoby Sanders. Very well written. And that was a long one. For me to read all that was a plus, but it was very well written.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Somebody sent it to me on my phone, and you did a nice job.
Thank you. One more question that I had is about Tanner Brown. I know you talked about his success after the game, but how have you seen him just respond to these new responsibilities, and maybe even off the field? What kind of person is he?
He doesn't talk a lot, but you know, the situation with him and Alex, they're always, for lack of a better term, somewhat difficult because they're good friends. They train together. They train all summer. They train in off season, train in preseason, and then when one guy ends up kicking and the other guy's not, you know, it's just it's a tough situation. But he's been fantastic, and Alex has been awesome. They're both really good people, and they're working well together. And fortunately, Tanner's done well, right? He's kicked off good, and he's been good on his PATs and field goals, and we're fortunate. He came from, he walked on here from UNLV. I need to ask him how he ended up getting there and getting here. I don't even know how he got there and here. I just know that that he's done really well, and he's worked hard, and we were fortunate that we had him kicking Saturday.
Noticed how quick he gets the ball up. In fact, he came into play late in the Texas game on one. They had a pretty good.
They had a good surge through our left guard and left tackle, yeah, and the elevation on the ball helps.
You mentioned we've talked about how big Jason Taylor's play was, but how about the punt from Tom Hutton to flip the field?
It's huge, yeah. We're punting from our own 28, and he goes out of bounds on the 4-yard line. Big deal. Flipping the field like that's a big deal.
Carter, he got a handful of plays in. What's kind of been his process of coming back, and when do you expect to have him go full go at Magic?
Full go we won't know because you're dealing with, you know, when you have an issue where you have back problems, you have to get your nerves firing again at a pace that would be normal body type, and it gets better every day. And when all that starts firing back to full speed, then when he moves around, he'll look like he did. He's probably 70% now, something like that. And then, maybe at the end of this week he'll be 80. But nobody knows. It's just when all those nerves start firing again the way they're supposed to.
Jackson's another guy who suited up but didn't necessarily see too much of the field.
Who?
What's Desmond Jackson?
Yeah, well, I mean, seven's rolling, and Dominic came in and got some plays, but he's healthy. He practiced most of last week. He could have played, but he should even be better this week. And I've said it every week that it's a lot of carries for him, but it's just when he's as successful as he is and he gets a little stronger as the game goes on, boy, it's sure hard to get him out.
You sat him there for a little bit in the third quarter. I know is it more of the flow of the game? Obviously, when a guy breaks off a 25, 30-yard run, he may need to come out for a play or two, but were you looking at the game was close and you knew you wanted him fresh in the fourth quarter, or did you just need a breather at that point?
Coach Waz would be the guy to ask that. I think that it's almost like, like an NBA, like at some point they take Westbrook out and let him rest so that they can finish him the last 6 minutes of the game. I would say it's probably comparable to that, where if we feel like that he is getting fatigued and we're in we're exchanging blows, at some point we're going to have to rest him so he doesn't get 40-plus carries. I would say that would be a pretty good illustration of why that happens.
Braden had a couple catches. He's had 4 catches in the last few weeks. How's he come along?
He's doing good for where we thought he was preseason to where he is now. And he lost some battles Saturday, but he's competing against guys that are physically he's outmatched physically some against those guys. But his effort, his willingness, his competitive nature and all that's been fantastic.
I don't know if you talked to him, but it had to be pretty special for him to catch some passes in his hometown.
What about it? Oh, yeah, being from Austin, yeah. I thought about that last night when we were at practice and he was busy, and then I got to thinking about something else. But I was going to ask him how it was with his trip and his family being there and all that. It's pretty cool for him.
Hey, Mike, you said you were talking about Bijan and Brees Hall earlier. You said Bijan's electric, Brees is patient. What word springs to mind with Jalen?
I'm trying to think who he runs like. I don't know who he runs like. Because he's more elusive than you think, right? When you look at his body, you think, okay, he's not really a guy that makes you miss a lot. But he does make guys miss. He does run through tackles. And he has accelerated. And he does dip in and go around the corner. So I don't really know who he runs like. But he's a good runner. I mean, whatever. He's like, I think the best way to describe him is earlier, he's just really productive. A lot of times it looks like he's gotten 3 yards and he really got 7. The run he had the other day where he bounced in, went around the left edge and went around, it looked like there wasn't anything there, and then, okay, he's going to get 3, and then before you know it, he had 28 yards. So he's just very productive. He's much thicker than Kendall. But there are some. Kendall would start and stop. Kendall would throw the brakes on and take off again. Jalen really doesn't do that. But there are some similarities there, sure.
Like you talked last week about Texas athletic ability and caliber of athlete you guys are going against. Are you back to this week? Are you playing a team more like you? Just a bunch of good football players who don't make a lot of mistakes and end up into the game ahead?
It's interesting you bring that up, because the best comparison that we could make, or really anybody could, I don't know if you guys have access to this, but so when the NFL scouts come in to watch our practices, just like they do everybody else in the country, they'll have a list, and that list will be of the rising seniors or rising juniors that aren't supposed to come out. We all know they watch them. They don't write them up, but they watch them. And then they'll have a list of, okay, you need to know this guy. He's a sophomore, and then, they got Kendall Daniels, and Kendall Daniels is supposed to be a great player someday. We need to at least look him over. Well, they'll have that list. And so there could be schools like I'll just say, like Alabama, that list might be 32 people compared to other schools where that list would be like 7, from their entire team. So I'm guessing that when they go to evaluate Texas, that list is probably pretty high. It's probably 25 people. And so from a coaching standpoint, it's important that we, and I know that based on, gives me an idea of where we're at athletically in games that we're playing. So we kind of know what the approach is. But to answer your question, these guys are in the right spot all the time, and they have been for a number of years. They, in my opinion, they live in their own box. They know, they have a good idea what they're good at, and that's what they press on. They're in a lot of. The other night they were in 3 tight ends and 1 receiver quite a bit. So they're good at that. They move their tight ends. They run their zone. They run their pull play. Quarterback works his play action. And then defensively, they set in their look. They varied it a little bit this year, but not enough to really bring up. And then they say, this is what we are. This is who we are. This is the position we're in, and we're not going to beat ourselves. I mean that's just kind of what I see. I could be wrong. Good. All right. Thanks.